One morning, to the cold, clean air, I wonder if I'll ever get to the stars I see in their time. I await the expanse of the blue sky, entering like warm bath water. The church bells of the plaza travel to find the way to every corner. If I were singing like they are, I would be in heaven. Earth has all sides to offer. One morning, to the cold, clean air, I wonder if I'll ever get to the stars I see in their time. I await the expanse of the blue sky, entering like warm bath water. The church bells of the plaza travel to find the way to every corner. If I were singing like they are, I would be in heaven. Earth has all sides to offer. This is a piece that I took inspiration in called One Morning. I created it out of wandering outside early one morning in January of 2018. And what struck me was the color of the sky. And just as I was coming out, I could hear the church bells just around the corner, and the cold, clean air, and the moment that catches you when you're truly present to it, when you just show up to it, and you almost just let go of all your thoughts. You just simply show up with nothing to do, nowhere to be, just simply being there. I was on the way to my office, but it was a moment where something just catches your attention. And as it does, it just seems to be something you cannot refuse. And then as you stay with it, you listen deeper. And it was at that moment that I could see the connection between the way that we come to understand something, we come to understand someone, as we stay longer and we listen deeper, that we literally find ourselves in the realm of our own wisdom, that we access a certain quality of knowing our answer, of coming upon information that we didn't have before, but somehow naturally, organically, the way that things came together just seemed to show up in such a natural way. And I don't know how this phenomenon works. I don't know how just showing up and paying fierce attention without any agendas seems to be a seed for the creative process. Because you see, as leaders, we get paid for doing things. We get paid for being productive. We get caught in the consumerism of the doer. And a lot of the doing that we get caught in a way, is very good because it moves us along. It's very goal-centric. We're paid for it. We're rewarded for it. We're responsible. And we like being involved in challenges that cause our skills to increase. Also, we just have to get things done. So not every piece of time that we use is strategic. Yeah. But I think if there's one thing that we all wish for is more of that time where it just seems effortless, where we fall in love with nowhere necessarily to be, but right here. And to a lot of us, it seems like it's so distant, so far away, that if we could just get this, or if we could just line this up, or if I only had the money, or if I only had the time. And so we just make up a story to ourselves that if we put everything else on hold, we could get to it. So if we could just get quiet, we could get into a stillness. If this would just stop going, we could just do this. If I could do this, help me, world, help me. I just want to get off. I need all these conditions just to line up for me to get access to my intentional silence. And that's the conundrum, is that it's always there, and that intentional silence, that spaciousness that we have in our attention is behind our attention. And yet we forget, because we step into being such a doer that has to do things, and yet we're very aware that we have choices. And that moment to moment, our awareness is really the way that we kind of slow down time. And that time is just moving it the way it does. There really is no such thing as time. Time is a mental construct of the world to just be, well, to be protective of being controlled by it. And so really time is just thought. And this is why when you go on vacation or you get away and everything is in place, and you have access to this feeling, you have access to this sort of freedom and bandwidth, and you feel boundless, and you feel as if you could be yourself. But what if we were on vacation all the time? What if we're not under the sickness of having to be everywhere and having to be split in 10 directions? What if we knew? What if we woke up to the possibility that the way in which we bring our attention to things is the source of our freedom? And that despite the circumstances being whatever they are, high, low, bad, wrong, good, tense, not tense, high pressure, on point, all that there's something really deeper, something elemental that we can access. Almost, it's so simple, it's hard. And one thing I like to think of is that the place, the power of place, we have a place that we're in that causes us to connect. And we know these places. They can be places in nature. They can be places in our homes. They can be places that we encounter. They can be places far away. And these are splendid places. And you know this place because somehow it feels like you've almost been there before. Maybe so historic that it almost feels mysteriously that you've been there maybe way before. And that this place really speaks to you. And so this year, this 2018, I had an opportunity to draw from places that I had encountered without refusal or without denying, but allow those places as if they were participants, as if they were a cast member in an unfolding story where I contemplated that those spaces actually had a creative process to offer me. And that when you find a place all of its own, whether that's outside, inside, a beach, could be a beautiful vista, or it could be just right here. It could be this place that you can't deny. This is how I related to a splendid place. A splendid place, a place all its own, is hearing me. It is a splendid place that offers itself without boundaries. To know it and be known by its frequency transcends time and space. Nothing stays the same here or there. Molecules are always in constant motion. Honoring differences reduces nothing to the familiar. To see is to bring everything to appear. The place gently brushes up against me. Like a feather touching a bubble, I appear to it. I am a runway for its presence. It lives in its own place. The misty silvered cresting moon fixes its gaze on me. I wonder what the bright star is saying to it from that side. To this and everything, I ask only this place to be. This is a splendid place because it belongs nowhere. To gather me into this space is sweet surrender, and then settle and release. Nothing and everything is contained. This is a splendid place. A splendid place. What do you bring to encounter a splendid place? Well, I think that this is a quality of showing up. And showing up involves us. It brings us, it asks us to leave the past. It asks us to unhook ourselves from the future. It asks us to let go of ourselves, our concepts of ourselves, and what we're trying to prove or to impose on the world, project. And at the same time, it allows us to release what others think. And these four distractions, these outlaw and ambush the ability for us to stay connected to the now, to this present moment. Remember that this present moment is the only time that you actually have any control over, because you have no idea what the mystery beholds about the future. You can set an intention. But this is about attention. And the quality of attention means you either are aware or you're not aware. And being aware means that you're paying attention to how you're paying attention. Yes. I know that you've had moments where you have truly been moved this year, stirred, touched where you have been inspired. In fact, if you look back on the year, you can remember moments where there were people, situations, experiences that maybe you haven't fully integrated. And as you look back, you remember, you relive, you replay. It's one of the gifts of life, is to replay those experiences, not to say goodbye to them, but to relive the memory, to take a moment of reflection, and to find what's in the past over the year that really belongs in the present and will go forward with you. See, as we look at the past, it's not just a source of regret. It wasn't about what we forgot. It's about what joined us. So when you make a decision about what you're going to do this year, when you say, well, here's my decision, or here's my goal, or here's what I want different, it's not that you're killing something off and choosing something and leaving something out. Rather, what is it from the past that belongs in this place that I must continue? Yeah. Because not everything in the past is a source of regret. You've had skills, you've had circumstances that have changed you and shaped you, you've had hardships, you've had wins. And the biggest risk that you have is not knowing why you're successful. And number two, not knowing why you failed. They're two great companions. They're the allies of current reality. Oh, no. Wait a minute, Joe JD. I'm afraid of the identity that I have, that I will be my circumstances. I'm equal to them, yes. So if I made mistakes, I am a mistake. Yeah, that's not true. That's a necessary lie that we may tell ourselves. But that's what shame feels like, is that I take personal what I have experienced. And you are not, you don't stand equal to your circumstances. You never could. Unless you wanted to define yourself by them, or you had an assumption that you create everything in your life. And if that was so, I don't know how you could assume you had that much power, and it sure would make life very uninteresting. It would make it something that couldn't be different. You're suggesting that you're not able to accept the differences. And yet the non-adjacency of the moment to the previous one, the fact that we do not reduce it by what we already know, is beauty, is the encounter with what is without reducing it, without reducing our friendships, without reducing our loved ones, without reducing our support staff, without reducing the other relationships in our life, but yet we enter them as valid because we are living them. And the only moment that we can say is truly valid is the moment in that we are living them. And to this we discover on a great adventure. We become the explorer, and we meet things along the way. And life sort of sneaks up on it, right? It sneaks up on us, right? It's a wild card. And so, yet there's something about being on the path that, one, had an itinerary, you had something you wanted, but then again, you fell off. And this is a road that unfolds itself by walking. You only know the future by walking. Now, if you have ever been to Baja California, about midway, if you take your finger and run it down that finger of Baja California, there are a series of volcanoes called the Three Virgins, the Tres Vírgenes. And there's a small town there called San Ignacio, which I enjoy going to. And this is, if you drive below the border and go down through the desert, the central desert of Baja California, past San Pedro de Martir, which is a beautiful observatory and mountain forest. And then about 5 hours just south of a little town called San Quintin is Guerrero Negro, which is the Black Soldier. And as you cross the peninsula to the Cortez side, to the Sea of Cortez side, just before you come to Santa Rosalia, you come to a little town called San Ignacio, which has a very old cathedral church, beautiful, out of the 1800s. And the third version, or what we would call the third virgin, or Virgin, is to explore. You can, there's a path, you can go up to it. And so this experience of being on this volcanic structure that gets up to 7,000 feet is great because you can see 360 all sides, north, south, east, west, and this liberating feeling of being on the peak, but the experience of starting from the bottom. And so I wrote this piece called Tres Virgenes in San Ignacio. I see her peeking over the hills of southern Baja. The black soldier, Guerrero Negro, is at our backs, and the Goliath Virgin appears ahead of us, 6,999 feet ahead. To know the view up there would be heaven. You stand above two other virgins. Among you, I have seen you from aerial views through a plane window, and I know you're always close by. My feet touch your surface. My intent to reach your halo is itchy. Nowhere except present with you, the journey begins. Perhaps the coyote tells me where to change, or the white rock formations inspire bolder priorities in my life. The lizard dances staccato with serendipity time. With streaky feathered clouds watched over your crown, they shape my capacity to trust differences in others. My puny intention evaporates. I am with you as a finger on the same hand. Receiving the direct sunlight, yellow flowers love to paint your opaque patches. You till the soil in trust for all to be fertile. And the sweetest smell imbues a friendlier universe within. Something new is ready to be born. Being human receives your wisdom. The elemental flow inside remains. Receiving all that is ready to come as the end nears, unsafe terrain brings me into friendship with my fear. Movement never wants to stop. Whether you blow or smolder, contain or flow, intelligence is known any way it comes. I wonder what brings you to exist inside. How tenderly dependent I am to your presence. A thing is a thing because of another thing. Turning the face to the burning sun asks nothing in return. I hear your voice in the silence all around my cat-like steps. Almost there, one more step, and a grand vista changes the heart. Mission accomplished. The path was the goal. Whole mountain is the informer. From my rearview mirror, I see you getting smaller. Virgin eyes cannot lie. No mountain, living being, or peak is without its origins from relationship. Tres Virgenes in San Ignacio. There are moments where we find something in the outer design of our lives that seem to inform the inner design. If we listen, we can listen from a periphery. We can be moved. But there's great danger in this. There's courage, because we offer ourselves to a welcomed guest that may not be pleasant. It may be wretched, foul-smelling. It may not be what we expect. And yet our suffering is not that thing, that incident, but the preconceived judgments and the concepts that we have and the mental constructs. It's those voices of judgment about what it should be, or who we are, or what we expected, that leads to some suffering. And we all have suffering. It's part of the human experience. And yet, I think we have a gross lack of capacity to make suffering our teacher. It's inevitable. And since we take a lot of suffering personal, or we try to addict ourselves in ways that move us out of our suffering, we don't know how to live in our own skins. We haven't really learned how to observe, witness. I'm not talking about grit and bear. I'm not saying that we have to live in every moment with Shangri-La, acting like great things are coming out of bad things. There is dark clouds and silver lining, and there is silver lining in dark clouds. But what I am saying is a certain quality in our living where whatever the terrain is, we have a choice to respond, to be response able, and to meet it where it is, with willingness, with alacrity, where we hold the space for it. People die. Situations collapse. It is the nature of things to deconstruct. We face a reality in the nature of things where things end. There are disappearances. There is negativity. And it can be very, very intelligent. And if we meet it, we can find something in our own resourcefulness where it's not to assume that everything is a problem, because if that were so, we would be a problem solver. And we must not define ourselves by problem solvers, because we don't have to make that assumption that everything is a problem when it doesn't go our way. It's an existing condition. It's like turbulence on an airplane, and therefore we ride it out. Because hope isn't something that we are optimistic about, yet it's a state of mind. Even if things are futile, we must do our best and offer our greatest good because it's our own nature. If I am a loving being, then as I work with the circumstances that are highs, lows, mids, the geometry of everything, I choose to show up as a human being with open, flexible mind, with an unarmored heart, with compassion. Why? Because I've come to know me as you've come to know you. We have the same machinery. We are souls. We have something greater behind us that is looking through the eyes. Yes. Something that knows of an emerging future possibility. It's not intuition. It isn't instincts. It's a deeper knowing. It's something deeply connected with the whole. I know what it feels like. I know you know that felt sense. I can't describe it in language because language would pollute its actuality. But I can experience it. I can sense it wanting something. I know you've had moments where you sense an emerging possibility that's almost seeking you. But how do you see it? See, how does it come through where it puts itself on the white pages of your book? How does it get inherited? How is it unblocked in your reception? This is the access point to get it in. How do you take it in? This is what intelligence is how we take in the moments. Is it our teacher? Is it an ally? Is it a point of reference? Is failure feedback? The hour is striking. Here's a piece by Rilke, Rainer Rilke, the poet. The hour is striking. The hour is striking so close above me, so clear and sharp, that all my senses ring with it. I feel it now. There's a power in me to grasp and give shape to my world. I know that nothing has ever been real without my beholding it. All my becoming has needed me. My looking ripens things, and they come toward me to meet and be met. Does this not speak to the power of perception? Does it suggest that perception is generative? It would seem obvious that it is. That we realize the world as we name it into reality. As if we noticed what we noticed, and that which we notice is made real. I'm not speaking about special powers or true magic or human potential. These aren't Jedi mind tricks. What I'm saying is that we can, through our manner of becoming aware, our quality of awareness, that we have the capacities to show up in such a way where we can integrate our experiences And as we integrate our experiences, we offer ourselves as listeners, from the head to the heart to the hand, to bring forth, to draw forth, to summon our original wisdom, our original medicine. Sometimes just the person that we think we shouldn't be with is someone who truly does need us. And that in some moment we can't see the invisible hand or the invisible help that's just around the corner. And yet it is. It's almost like the tides. Our lives are fatal, are ineffably connected to the ebbs and the flows without going into powerlessness, and yet being honest about how truly powerless we are. And it's the great paradox of influencing the future and meeting it too. Incoming and outgoing. One splendid place that helped me understand this was a very special clearing, a beach, that I had an opportunity, a pilgrimage to go to in Baja California, just below a small magical pueblo called Todos Santos. And if you've ever been to this beach called San Pedrito, it's magnificent. It's stunning. And there's a monastery, an old monastery that is abandoned, but there are palm trees around it, and just the vista of the beach and the way that the cliffs and the mountains come down, it's something, it's so savoring and so dynamic and special that it kind of knows who you are. Oh, San Pedrito, oh, San Pedrito, when I see you, I forget the world, and I return to a sweeter juice of life. The monastery sits watching your shoreline, the water reaching in to carve new lines. Moments will mirror me in your crystalline pools. To carry the sky in your glaze, putting no edits nor my past in front, seeing itself in your reflection implies purity. If my heart can get there, we will be one. O San Pedrito, wars are fought and men are spilt, and yet this day grace has fallen upon me. In quiet desperation, I asked and I accept the mysteries. Life holds them from all predictions. Nothingness knows what the tides bring in tomorrow. So seated is your face with words spoken in sticks. Each has a journey of 1,000 days to tell of. The order of things speak in soul tones. Only shamans would have said something just made for you. O San Pedrito, tonight the stars will come again to visit you. They too will pass on to the eternal. Even the old stories cannot deliver us from life going by. You bring me back to the love that I am. I love you, San Pedrito, and for this I love everyone. Wisdom is ready to expand. Peace is a place all its own. Goodwill visits all the sentient beings. Just listen and the tides signal. The best is just ahead. O San Pedrito. Hope is a state of mind. Hope isn't the state of the world. It's something within you. It's a manner of showing up. It's an orientation. It doesn't need the belief that things are going to play out a certain way. Why do you need to believe in yourself when you haven't done what you're trying to create? Because you're afraid to fail. And yet failure is the very thing that helps you learn how to strategically adjust to move closer to your aspirations. But the honesty and accuracy is scary. It's a mystery what the future is. But the gift of the mystery is hope. It's not a prognostication. It's an orientation of the spirit. You can't delegate that to anyone. Because in this deep and powerful sense, it is not the same as joy when things are going well. It's not that you're obviously headed for an early success or your willingness to invest in business. It's the ability to work for something to succeed. It's the process plus the outcome. And the process is its own reward. Some may even say the process is the goal, because the goal sets you into a path of learning. Things change. So, can you state that you know things will turn out well? Is there any room for that? Where's faith? Because you're going to take leaning into the future. You're going to take meaningful leaps, leaning forward into the future, listening, regardless of how it turns out. And if you couldn't guarantee that it would go well, how would you do it? Why would you do it anyway? Because if you didn't, you would be spiritually dead. You must, as to what you need to do, what you must do, what you know deep down you need to do, what you need to be saying yes to that you're not, or what you need to be saying no to, or vice versa. If you want to get your yeses and your nos right and install your authenticity in those, then you've got some decisions to make. But those decisions are not out of control. Intention has a parenthesis. The parenthesis is mystery. I know the limits of my intention. I will set one. It organizes my actions. It's a rudder in the water. When Kennedy said, put a man on the moon, he didn't say, we will, because we know how. He said, knowing how isn't going to form or shape that direction. That's a decision all by itself that matters, but it got us to learn, to put things together, to configure from our limitations. It brought a creative process which did produce resources and created and mobilized amazing changes. Maybe one of the greatest leadership moments. So the hope gives us strength. It gives me strength to live, to continually try new things and remember the discovery and the exploration of life and the great adventure of things. It's a remembrance. Like the surfer, we have to ride every wave. And that means whatever you get, take it. Be where you are, with what you have, and play the hand you've got. Quit complaining and arguing with the life that's present. What if the future needed exactly what the moment is giving you? And an executive coaching client, Chris, made this very clear in his reflections on his love for surf. In Chris's Way, I wrote a piece called Chris's Way. Cold, soupy water. The weather is bad. Go and surf every wave. Don't wait. The instant lights the matchstick. Paddle out. Let the magic find you. Snow is blowing. Wind is chapping. Ski every foggy run until time runs out. Market conditions are uncertain. The future is blurry. Go create value no matter what. Faith in action depends on no outcome. Just start. Stay long enough for the magic to happen. Integrity depends on ambiguity. And length of exposure releases possibility. Let the area become itself, and let what it desires have your gaze. The future needs the moment. Let go into let come. Do it every day like a march. Don't stop until you reach the edge. You will have your day. The process has its own reward for you. I love the surfer's mentality because when we ride every wave, It requires a shift from a mindset of attainment to a mindset of an experience. And I think this is the part where we miss all sorts of things in our life, is we're so busy in seeking mode, which is fine. We're trying to create something that matters to us. We're on the way somewhere. But to assume that all the contentment is going to show up once we arrive is really unfortunate, because we don't need to be putting our contentment behind the motivation of our goals. We can be contented where we are. There's access to contentment everywhere we are, everywhere we look, if we just start offering a more fierce attention to what's really going on. And so I think this quality of attention is being summoned by all sorts of distractions in our hairy, sort of speedy, radical information society that seems to be just taking our attention away from the moment that we're in, and robbing us and burglarizing us of some of the cherishing that we can do. What I've learned is that, especially this year, is that when you learn to stay with what's happening, when you learn to extend your attention, even in volatility, even in complex situations, everything is temporary. And if you hold a place, if you realize that everything is in a state of movement, that the only thing that's fixed is what you set your mind on. If you have your belief systems fixated on the way things are or the way things need to be, then you're in the past. But if you let that go and you just cut the cord to it, you extricate yourself from your automatic mind stuff, from the rush and the gush of your reactive mind stuff, which is what yoga means, then you're more attending from a place of here, right here. No matter what the situation is, you can still integrate your experiences, almost embracing irrelevance, where wherever you are may not seem like the thing that's justifying your time, but not all the time you have needs to be justified. You can bump into accidents and find great connections, great meaning. In fact, you will. And so if you have an intention, and then you walk into the moment with a open, fierce, sort of flexible attention, it's amazing how we sort of come up with breakthroughs. We see insights. We honor differences. But we're seeing non-adjacent to the past. And so we have to watch how responsible we are, because we can get recklessly responsible for trying to be so in control of everything that we haven't learned how to balance our true powerlessness with the power we have to create what we want. So this is a paradox. You're chess piece and chess master. You're in a world of meeting the future as it's coming towards you while you're influencing it at the same time. It's all happening at the same time. So the skill sets to lead from an emerging future with more of a disruptive change environment that we're in, where things are happening so fast, you realize most of the assumptions, most of the knowledge base that you have is becoming obsolete faster and faster. So we have to renew ourselves with a courageous step into the future, with an open mind, an open heart, an open will, so that we can realize what our intentions can be. We can process information at the scale of the whole, as something that we are walking into is revealed to us that we can inherit. So I have to remind myself not to get too responsible. So I wrote this piece called When I Get Too Responsible. When I get too responsible, fear sends me looking for answers. I stutter, searching for words. My lips are muted by a tiger ready to pounce, or the boogeyman is staring me down. When I get too responsible, my eyes are tired of searching, and my tongue feels like a clumsy drunkard. I have managed myself with the obligation of a chore. The ghost in the machine is offline. When I get too responsible, I warn my notion of power to dissolve. Just then moisture rushes in, and the weather takes over. Natural resources relight the inner lamp. When I get too responsible, I remind myself that I belong to the beloved. I call to the places that know me best. Outer, inner, only the space between knows first and last. And through the peephole, my seer sees once again. We have a mind and we have a brain, and we know that when the brain is quiet, when that active thinking turns off, when we regulate that thinking, when we convert our thoughts into sort of being the clouds in the sky that we observe, we become separate from our internal processes. And rather than dominated by them, we can observe them. And this is a powerful practice. And I believe this is what getting to responsible, this piece is really hinting at, is a quality of being aware, of not getting too responsible for figuring out the mystery, of knowing the limits of our intentions. There is a parenthesis. I've said this throughout this audio. And part of our maturation is learning how to meet it there, just as it is. I remember a time where I was intending to paint a part of my house. So my wife and I took a trip to the paint store. Then I had a slight intention. I had a vague vision of what I wanted to create. But as I got to the paint store and I began to just show up and observe, I took this practice into consideration. And I decided to take that moment and just clear my head and come to a place where I was not thinking about anything. I just sort of checked in with myself. I just said, okay, leave it behind, just show up into this place. And then I started flipping through the different colors. You know, when you go through that little fan color piece where you're looking at all the different fanned colors in that little paint tool, and you just start observing, and then you're kind of toggling between the color and then the house and seeing how it would look, and then you come back to the color and you start to make conceptual comparisons. And then, you know, as you slow down and you begin to kind of absorb as if you were permeable, the colors, they begin to sort of connect with you in a different way. It was like I just sort of got out of my what I need and just went into what is sort of speaking to me. It was kind of weird. It was sort of an out-of-body moment, right? In a paint store. And so it didn't matter what the conditions were. It was just a way in which I was showing up, right? So I brought this sort of attention to it. Let go of the future. Let go of the past. Let go of my rules. Let go of my expectations. No assumptions. No mental models. No mental activity. Just listening. And I'm flipping through this little fan. I don't know what you call it, but it looks like a fan that's stacked with a bunch of colors and so forth. And the color peach, I come upon the orange color. And there's a word there that says chabacano. And chabacano means apricot. And something really struck me about it. I mean, the word itself just sort of rang my bell. I couldn't quite put my finger on why it resonated with me so much. So I kept the word, I wrote it down, and then I went back. I kind of meditated on it. I sat quietly, and the words started to come up. And what it was something about a pit that was sitting inside of an apricot, and that the pit had a certain meaning to it, where the pit was somewhat like the core, or the soul, as soulful person, and what was on the outside was the sweetness and the fruit, the moisture. And then I kind of drew a picture of it, and I filled it in, you know. And I'm getting all this off of a painting moment of my house. But this is great. Because, again, if you embrace irrelevance and you start to go into something with this kind of attention, you'd be amazed at what bumps into you. And so I wrote this piece called Chabacano, and it was about the pit and the apricot. So I'd like you to imagine an apricot as if you were one, like me. Chabacano. You must do your own thing, for it is not an option. You must do your own thing, for it is not an option. The sweetest peach houses the touchstone. Lay your loving hands on the surface. Engagement by consent offers itself. Answer when the world calls your name. Even suffering knows this. Everything speaks in soul code. Decay cannot reduce nothingness. Then fuzzy, soft surroundings polish the mirror. The light bulb moon sings front stage. And among a pink backdrop, feather-friendly clouds hush, and the seed is perfect on its own terms. The gateway to whole fruit cannot be two. Inner power meets outer purpose. Soft and hard hold the ring of fire, and the contradiction animates effortlessly. And rewards are for everyone. The pearl of wisdom is polished. Just name it into the world as it desires. Chabacano. We meet life. We meet it in its own song. We meet it in its own conversation. Reality has a conversational nature to it if we meet it there. And I often think that sometimes when we encounter these moments, we are automatically, almost in the underground, asked if we have the self that can actually survive it. Because there's a part of us that has been holding the database of what we know, stuck in our old ways of judgment and thinking, of trying to be right and trying to make sense of all this out of fear, and we do not want to lose control. In fact, we are so obsessed with control that we spend all of our time trying to make predictions about the future instead of creating one. And what I love about this is that the Chabacano is this part of you that just remains. It doesn't have memory. It's the only part of you that doesn't change, which is this pit. It says the seed is perfect on its own terms. The gateway to whole fruit cannot be two, suggesting that something divine is imbued in you. Yeah. And that the soft and the hard hold the ring of fire. Yes, that's the great contradiction between the outer design of life and the capacity to let it change us, to unblock your reception. What do we have to do to unblock our reception? It's easy to say, well, just be open. But that's it's very glamorous. I mean, it's great, right? That's really nice. But that's not so easy when things get difficult. When the moment somehow just seems very, very difficult to bear. There's a great short poem by Izumi Shikibu called Although the Wind. It's called Although the Wind, and the poem says, although the wind blows terribly here, the moonlight also leaks between the roof planks of this ruined house. Although the wind blows terribly here, the moonlight also leaks between the roof planks of this ruined house. We spend all of our time removing and thwarting our pain. Pain about, pain around, negativity. Get it out. I don't want it. When it's a very natural part of our living is negativity and pain and suffering. Although the wind blows terribly here, the moonlight also leaks between the roof planks of this ruined house. Who do you choose to be? I have to ask you that. Who do I choose to be? If I don't know that things will play out better than before, if I'm not going to win, if I'm not going to guarantee what I'm going for, with everything I've got, my commitment, my courage, if I'm betting on a bigger future than the past, and I can't guarantee it'll work, why would I do it anyway? This is a big question in this audio. And it has something to do with a choice. Who do I choose to be? And this brought me to write this piece called Who Do I Choose to Be? And I'd like you to consider this very carefully within yourself. Who I choose to be. I see children taken away by predators. They cry out, but nobody listens. I see men killing each other for power and greed. I am afraid of being afraid. If this comes into my will, I imbue violence. Grace inherited is the remembrance of a loving root. My soil inside is fertile with unblocked reception. Perhaps the world can be just as it is. Nothing more for me, nothing less. Just right. Perhaps my fear is seeking my sanity. As if to be shipwrecked on an island, nothing is predictable. Time moves in with troubles and trials. It is futile to settle upon it or aggress, as if to be the matchstick in the urinal. Instead, I'm a pilgrim walking among the ruins. I am awake and welcome everything. To the days ahead of this moment, one internal command stands above them all. Be good on behalf of my clear view. Be good on behalf of my clear view. I am human who sees human beings. Even if futile, I am not to leave my nature. I have music in me to play, and that music, for me to know and to play it anyway, is my choice. The world is made to be good in it. Just keep going. Just keep going. So, who you choose to be becomes an important piece to, no matter what situation you're in, you're organizing out of your value of doing good anyway. And this is what it means to just keep going, is you're staying into the direction of what really matters to you. So think about what really brings you to just keep going, to carry on. My dad would say to me after every time we would have a conversation, throughout my entire life, every time we would leave the conversation, he would say, okay, carry on. I didn't really realize just how amazingly valuable of a gift that was, because my dad was implying that our lives, they come and go with ups and downs in all shapes and sizes, and that you have your next move to play. See, I think what really is fabulous about this, when you say to yourself, carry on, is you're asking yourself a question. The implication is, what is it that really belongs here? See, and sometimes we see the past as a source of frustration. We say, boy, I want to get rid of this. I don't want to have the past reoccur. It's a regret rather than a capability. And when I say to myself, okay, carry on, keep going, what I'm asking myself is, what is it that belongs here from the past? What about the continuity piece? And two things that you can reel in from the past are your skills, right? Your self-knowledge, that you know objectively things about you that you tend to quite frankly be great at, which is being talented to be talented, and knowing what you're great at. And that's not arrogance. That's just coming by yourself objectively. Because if you know those things, then you can self-allocate. You can dramatically improve your performance in situations by making better decisions. While at the same time, there are things that do need to be kept in the past that will never be able to be complete. And that if we know that the past is incompletable, well, then we can sort of, even though the wake is going to be behind the boat as we move along, we can let go of our tendency to be interested in it, because the past really isn't interested in us. And so there's a quality of just letting it be there and not being at issue with it, because we have something bigger to attend to. And this is where the future comes in. Rather than being a source of frustration in comparison, what we do is we reframe the future not according to our ideals of what we should be or who we should be, but rather where we're going, what really matters to us. This is the values conversation. And if there's fear around it, then can we accept that fear is a natural state and actually offer attention to fear, because it's really our legitimate way of keeping our sanity. When we think about a future that's bigger than the past, that has a greater challenge than our perceived skills are ready for, we have to apply a sense of courage. And the root word, or the root in courage, means coeur or core in French, which means from the heart, from the core. To encounter something that is not yet something we know how to do. And that's what creating is bringing it to exist from what didn't. So creating really starts with nothing. I mean, when you ask the question, what really matters to me, it starts with love. When a musician asks, what kind of song do I want to write or create, they just write the song, not out of obligation, but out of aspiration. And that naturally summons the stronger spirit toward what you want to bring into being. But I think there are other questions too about the future, as if the future needs something from you. I think we all sense at times, by the way we look at things, that there's something waiting for us in the future that stands in need of our service. There's something greater than ourselves that provides us a deeper sense of listening, more of that generative listening, from a greater peripheral, from the marketplace, from the community, to really listen from a place that's deep within us, that really does care and is sincere in our thoughts, that we do really belong in a space or an idea, or maybe it's a business or a sense of service, and we get deep, rich fulfillment and energy by doing things that make a difference and that matter a lot to us. And so the grand ecosystem from which we are all a part, in a way, makes contact with us when we see meaning in things and when we reflect on what inspiration we took in based on the subject matter of our life that arises, or what touched us or moved us. And yet if we're moving too quickly and we don't have a chat with that thing that showed up, we don't really gather ourselves from it. We don't really set the intention that was really made for us to see. So it's a quality of coming awake that we have. And so here we are, we're going along, and not everything is necessarily going our way. Sometimes it does. But life is a very friendly place. It's very helpful if we choose to see it that way. And when we do, we navigate by walking into future situations, kind of knowing the path by walking. And then what's given to us is whatever the future is going to reveal for us. It's like the first time. So I wrote a piece called The First Time, which is about maintaining our experience or maintaining our inexperience. Sometimes we use it, and sometimes we have to remember the models we have from the past just don't work anymore. In fact, the very infrastructures that we try to lay down on the present to make sense of things, kind of download into things, become the biggest sources of our challenges. And as Einstein said, we can't solve the problems at the level of thinking that's causing them. We need a shift of mind. And so one of the ways that we can consistently shift our mind is to not reduce the present moment to something that we think it should be. So I call this the first time. The first time is always the one. To he who caught my first pitch, standing there I was seen to be great at something that was given, which is to be given. To cancel this from the list would cut off a limb. It is to be seen for the first time that makes us whole. Initiation is not the Father's way. A man becomes a man when rewarded by other men for being himself. Perhaps I am fathered by a lifetime of suppliers. I came to know versions of me beyond the sun. To those who came into my own story, even the insulting ones are teachers. The future needed them to come, as if souls served other souls in my future encounters. Supply lines keep our best in conversation, and many voices come through mine. I am a multiverse, living among a network of conversations to and from. Noise and shock, suddenness of loss, degeniuses the wise one. To return, I must remember the souls that saw me true. Dependence is my way back home. Little by little, I let the world have what belongs in it, because whatever was put in me is to give it. The purpose of life is to open the stream, to live it. The notion of power is absolved into atmospheric order. I am never defined by what I know. All doing is knowing, anyway, as all knowing is doing. To reduce the next moment is to overthink it, and follow what the future wants to see this moment. I shall bring the first time into what is next. Life knows wherever I am. This is called The First Time. And it reminds us to maintain a fresh mind. To be where we are with whatever we have, doing the best with whatever we've got. But there's something else about it too that I think you can hear breathing in this piece, about something bigger, something that is self-organizing, something that's moving you, something that's moving me, something whole, something bigger, something that we allow ourselves to submit to, take in, to arrive in, to match up with our own choices, to match up with what we are seeing and sensing in a certain creative order, a pattern of order out of which we follow. And I think this part of listening is such a key piece to be available, to be moved, to be touched, to be challenged beyond the familiar, to be seen. Yes, to be seen. One of my favorite places on earth is a little bay on the Espiritu Santo Island, which is the Saint Spirit Island in southern Baja California. About 20 minutes boat ride outside of a little city called La Paz, down near the tip of the Baja Peninsula, lies a bay called San Gabriel Bay, and every time I get away, I love going there because something is there that just clicks me in some way. And we all have places, splendid places that bring us true, that bring us genuine, that bring us, I think, into the deepest parts of who we are, if we let it. And so this was one day walking on the white sand beds of San Gabriel Bay with the most beautiful crystalline water, and coming upon the edges of the soft waves on the shore, the tides of San Gabriel. Touching the white sand bed, the waves gently brush in to chase the sun. The bay of San Gabriel preserves the wisdom of a spirited saint. Sea turtles plan their offspring for another generation. Air all around is detectable in smaller spaces. Universe and mind are aligned at the gateway of silence. A torrential gap is seeking movement and narrowing its gaze on the water. The tides of time seek to fill the curvatures of the leading sand corridor, corralling and ushering into the tide pools. An ovarian delta is seeded by an ominous flow, as if the mouth of the sea blows gently through like a pipe cleaner. And the incoming push takes the path of least resistance, and the growing womb of water invites all to enter. San Gabriel, teach me how to breathe inward as you do and let go. I see your face in the corridor coming to be, and I sense your loving presence in the wet drops in the wind. In communion with the sky, breathe in and welcome everything new. Breathe out and say grateful words for what came before. The turtles have left their eggs to the mystery. Faith belongs to the great way. Yesterday stays behind. The water knows where I am. Tidal time is like a spreading love, and the observer within is purified by tears of Mother Earth's sea song. The soul holds the space. As the water is taken in, once again a remembrance is forgotten. The crab nestles in for the day into the night. She crawls where the water takes her. She knows just the time to move or rest. Carpe diem, I whisper, carpe diem, in my next tidal breath filling my lungs. All things outside are inside right here, and no two things are apart anywhere. The water shapes the contour of the terrain, and the terrain is shaped by the water. And the one writing this is shaped by one thing, never to forget. Learn to receive. The tides of San Gabriel. We move and are moved. We intend and we attend. We connect and we feel. We see and we sense. and we presense emerging futures that are coming towards us. Why don't we step towards that? Why don't we move into that space? Take the meaningful leaps into the uncertainty that our intentions tell us. And as we do, we step into that place. We step into the mystery. We are then available. We become available to something new. And it's very much like sailing on the boat. Is that as we sail out and we go to island time, there's something about the island that becomes our teacher. That as business people, we back ourselves into the sea gypsy that knows the suit. The sea gypsy is the one, the soul. The sea gypsy is the depth. The sea gypsy is the one who finds meaning and service and is able to navigate and integrate the mystery. This is called the sea gypsy in the suit. Island time, the air is sweetest, sitting quietly with a world within a world, and the sky holds no secrets. I am adrift in a sea of bliss. The gypsy leads the suit to dance over the water. Soft at first, the edge of night is met with sea silence. Yet, according to me, I am two. The role stands in the center. Soul holds the space. Minus me and two are one. Root is far thicker than the branches. Core is wiser than edge. Seated in me is the one in timeless whereabouts. Perhaps the suit is simply an incarnation. Where the world actually wants me is my place to take. I sense the sea gypsy is my suspended animation, with life-giving water gushing from pairing to properties. My true definition is hosted by the future shining in. I am the mystery, the servant and the light, and the world was made for being in it. Opening my eyes, the moisture seeds me now, as if something the suit can never attain is far more elemental. Inherit the day, the wind, the sun, and the moon. Integrate the shapes and patterns of creative order as they emerge. All is now, and now is all. My inner enemies have become my teachers. How pure my soul is of my own nectar. Heaven is here. Heaven is here. Sea gypsy in the suit. I think one of the things that actors toggle with, one of the things that actors have to confront, is when they are shapeshifted into the part, there's a part of them that's kept. And if one does not know the authentic self, it is difficult to have a relationship with the costume that they're putting on. Because there's great threat and ambush in being someone else when you have no idea what your center is. So why could you truly have a relationship with that face, with that play? So can we experience the world in the most of it, in what's all there, in its conversation, without our quality of being coming into our awareness? Sure we can. But our experiences are unconscious. So we walk through them without noticing what's really there, what's available to us. We ignore certain qualities because of our seeking mode or being locked into our certainties, but we're not listening. We're not listening. And there's different levels of listening that we can have. And so we stand somewhere, and as we do, we notice there are moments of truth where the truth of who we are transcends time. That truth is greater than time. Because so too, as we learn to stay with situations just where they are, there's new information that's revealed to us. And the question is, what do we do with that information? Part of the information is the untold story. It's the not yet embodied information that comes with the movement naturally in our lives. So if we take our faith offline and only do action, then we forget the enlightenment and we just do the doing. It's like being in trance or walking the procession of the living dead. Everything is just out to confirm everything we already knew. And that's not aliveness. No, it's not. That's repeating. That's a recipe for boredom. There's no astonishment. There's no inexperience to maintain. But a person is a person because of another person. We are not ever by ourselves disconnected from the world around us. Our community is what brings us whole. How we treat people is how we think of them, and how we treat them is who we become and who they become. Both. The circularity of we come into being by being seen by the other, and we come into being by being seen by the other. It's vice versa. It's circular. That no one is entirely of themselves. We are part of a larger order. Now, if you've ever been to Sonora, the Sonoran Desert, you can't miss the saguaro cactus, because it's an extraordinary organism in that it stands in a place where it knows just the right amount of water to conserve. It knows how it puts itself into the ecosystem, its community, as a contributor. It's knowing its place to take in balance. And what struck me is standing there with a painted sky in the background. The saguaros stand, and they stand in the changing weather systems, but they stand anyway. And I could see myself, who I choose to be if I were the saguaro, to be compassionate and sensitive to the place to take around me, and yet be reverent to the others and the impact of my seeing and being seen. And coming to know a certain way of operating, a certain way of living there by being changed, being reverent, being kind, and generous and understanding. So I took inspiration in a piece with one saguaro on a Saturday afternoon, standing there, stunned, seeing its silhouette on a painted sky. And this is called Saguaro on a Painted Sky. Standing between light and dark, voltage arms reach upward to the heavens. Yes and thank you. Imbue your courageous presence in my breath of life. Stand still and raise arms high. The world is right here. As if your silhouette alerts my meeting the unfamiliar directly. Looking away, I know you are always there. Your shadow casts upon the tempo of time. To mine you have no rules or wreckage. To the truth of what there is not yet to know, you begin and end at the top of the head, as if to hold the remembrance of a delicate forever. No sun refuses you if you keep on turning toward the light. Nothing is made for itself and of itself. Wisdom pours into those who turn toward the mystery, conserve it, and conserve it all and take no more. The world is meant to be a well for it. Take what you need, but watch over the other, for today will be yours to outlast. Keeper of the soul and sundial of sky time, who is to die anyway is forever standing, as if to stay in the cross current for life to unfold. Just allay your imperfections to the Mighty One. It is never to be what the past said. Only roots serve you now in the plays of life. Staying here is the alphabet of your image. Let the earth move as it does. Revelation will continue to the diligent one. Your flowers come quickly to die back into life, as if to reduce nothing and conserve love. Welcome all like sweet honey pouring out. Saguaro on a Painted Sky. We all have an interrelationship with the path, the emerging path that stands before us, that we know by walking, that as we meet it, and we courageously meet it and make contact with our experiences, we begin to open parts of ourselves that we lost along the way that we need to reclaim. Part of it's sort of coming back home, of rejoining or reacquainting a lost or hidden part of what we forgot when we got experienced, when we made methods out of things, when things became predictable and mechanical. But yet we must remember that we live among, for, and to a living system. We are all living systems, and we are living systems that are coexisting. And so too, in our living system, is the path of the creative, the path of the heart, and the path of what really does matter to us. And I believe that the greatest access to this expression that we can occupy, to consider, to be intentionally kind, to be generous, to offer ourselves in the truth of who we are, to use reflection to change our history, that these are some of the highest qualities of expression that we can access at any moment. And to this, I state that that's leadership. This place that makes room for mystery and moves from what you discover as you consider things that matter. And that if you're standing and hearing me in your heart, that this is the next moment of your life, of your business, of your story that's about to unfold in a great adventure that's ahead of you. And you have so much music in you to play that life can be very unfriendly, and that if it is, the purpose of it is to live it. And so too, do I wish you, as you move into this next year, the very, very best of doing just that. To be a great soul, to live your best life, to make a big impact, and to learn to receive. And to any of these moments that you sense you need to, you yearn to, stay longer and listen deeper. You'd be amazed at what might play out. Give yourself the space that you need to understand something new. And as you do, so too do you become more aware of you, of possibilities that may not find you without this. And as you open those doors, it's about trust. No matter what's coming your way, it's about trust. Because everything the future needs is given to you in this moment. And the biggest question that you can ask yourself is, will you trust that? And if you do, then you're listening generatively to the life that's here. And as you compose that beautiful heartfelt intention that you have about what matters to you, make that the organizing force of your life building process in all aspects, your business and personal. You can do your life, make your life as art. You can listen your way into creating as you create. My greatest wish is that this brings you more aware of how your experiences in such ways can be constructive. Even when they seem irrelevant, there's an alchemy, a certain creative order that you can witness if you stay longer and listen deeper. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation.